This podcast is on how to calculate standard deviation. The first way we'll do it is by hand, and the second way I'll show you is by using a graphing calculator, and you'll see that that way is much quicker. Now, standard deviation describes how spread out a set of data is, and we'll learn that the higher the standard deviation, the more spread out the data is. So the first step is we're going to find the average or the mean of a set of data. After that, we're going to find the difference between each data item and the mean. Step 3 is to square each of the differences. Step 4 is to divide the sum of the squared differences by 1 less than the number of data items. And 5 is to take the square root. Now, all of this is laid out in the example below. So here they find the average, here they subtract, square, and so on. Let's do an example together. Again, it'll be a lot easier when we do it with the numbers. Okay, so we're going to take a look at this data set right here. Follow the 5 steps to find the standard deviation. So if we go back to the first step is to find the mean or the average of our set of data. So I'm going to write out the step and then we'll do it. So here, find the mean. Or X bar is another way to write average. So we're going to add 20, 15, 28, 13, and 19. And then after you add all those, since there's 5 terms, we'll divide by 5. Okay, so there's the first step. And if we calculate that, the average is 19. Okay, the second step, if we go back a page, is to find the difference between each data item and the mean. So we're going to be doing some subtracting. Okay, so step 2, let's use a different color. We'll subtract the number, the term, minus the average, X bar. I'm going to write down the terms first. 20, 15, 28, 13, and 19. And we'll subtract the average, which is 19, to all these. Okay. Oops. Okay, so here the difference is 1. Here the difference is -4. Here the difference is 9. And here the difference is 0. Okay, so there's step 2, find the difference between each term and the average, or the mean. Next, step 3 is to square each of those differences. So step 3, we're going to take each of those numbers and square it. So step 3, we have 1 squared, -4 squared, 9 squared, and 0 squared. And we'll get 1, 16, 81, and 0. So there's step 3 is to square the differences. Step 4 is to divide the sum of the squared differences by 1 less than the number of data items. Okay. So we have to add all these together. So let's do that here. Add them together. And if we add them, we get 100. Oh, I'm missing one here. Sorry. 13 minus 19. All right, so I missed this data point 13. So 13 minus 19 is -6. -6 squared is 36. Okay, now I can add them all up, and we'll get 134. Okay, and then we have to divide that by 1 less then the number of terms. So here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. We're going to divide 134 by 4. So here's step 4. 134 divided by 4. Get my calculator. Okay, and that'll give us 33.5. Okay, so there's step 4. Step 5 is take the square root of this number. So the very last step, step 5, is we'll take the square root of 33.5, and that will give us our standard deviation. So let me square root the answer, and we'll get about 5.787, so I'll round to 5.79. Okay, so here's the standard deviation, 5.79, which is pretty small. These numbers are pretty close together. So small standard deviation means the numbers are lumped pretty closely together. All right, as you can see, it's not a difficult process, just a lot of steps. If you have a graphing calculator, I'll show you how to type it in, and it will save a lot more time. So let me grab a graphing calculator. We'll find the standard deviation using the graphing calculator, the same set of numbers. So to do that, you hit the Stat button, which is under your Delete button. We're going to enter these numbers into a list. So we're going to edit the list here. We'll hit Enter. And then if you have numbers in your list, can I talk to you later? I'm doing a podcast. Thanks. All right, if you enter these numbers into a list, you'll hit Up, Clear, Down to clear it first. And then we'll type in the numbers. So we have 20, oops, go back, 20, 15, 28, 13, 19. Okay, so there are the numbers. Now we're going to calculate the standard deviation. So here are the buttons we're going to press. Hit Stat again, just under Delete. Go over to Calculate, and then we're going to calculate the one variable statistic. So it's already highlighted, so we're just going to hit Enter and Enter again. And we have a bunch of different data here. We have X bar, the average, which 19 was what we found before. N is the number of terms. The standard deviation is this S with the little X right here, so S sub X, and that is 5.789, so on, which you can see we calculated down here. So the standard deviation is the one with the S and the little X. So instead of doing the 5 steps, all we had to do was type it into a list and calculate the one variable statistics to get the standard deviation. So again, it's this symbol right here. So if you have any questions, ask during class or try watching the podcast again and see if you can calculate the standard deviation.